Broncos country, what is going on? Hope you guys had a wonderful day. Got to catch at least some of the game of the Denver Broncos taking on the Arizona Cardinals today in the preseason finale. You guys be sure to share your thoughts here in the comments. But my first initial reaction is, what can't Sean Payton do? Any quarterback that works with him improves. We've seen it with Drew Brees. We've seen it with Jameis Winston. We've seen it with a guy that I never even thought had a real chance at playing quarterback, Taysom Hill. I think that he's a much better player than before he got working under Sean Payton. We saw Sean Payton help Russell Wilson, a washed Russell Wilson, have a much better year in 2023 than what we saw in 2022. And now we're seeing what he has done with Zach Wilson. I think that he's done a phenomenal job. That's my first takeaway from today's game is I thought that he played pretty well after a little bit of a start. Bill Bell L, I was just thinking about you, so it's great to see that you're in the comments. I know that there are a couple comments earlier on I need to respond to, but we'll get to this in a second. But you were about to say exactly what I wanted to bring up, was that it was very rocky at first. Even Jeremy texted me. It was like, man, Zach Wilson probably should have had two interceptions, maybe even a pick six off one of those. But after that, he settled in. And I'm not saying Zach Wilson is a starter in the NFL, but I think when you're talking about the quarterback rehab, I think he's playing some of the best football. He really did settle in. You saw better pocket presence. Again, I feel like we've seen that compared to his time with the Jets. We've seen him do better. And then once he settled in, I mean, let's talk about that just absolute 50-something yard bomb that he threw to Brandon Johnson. Wasn't that beautiful? Now, I will say it was still some of the Zach Wilson ball that we had seen. And that's kind of been typical of his career, where it's a little bit up and down. He makes some amazing throws. He makes some head-scratching throws, some risky throws. The protection, I don't feel, has been as good the last couple games as what he got week one. So I don't think that there's anything crazy behind the correlation of when he gets better protection, you get better play out of him. But I do think that this is what we've been hoping to see. I think that he is improving. I think that he's settling in. And I think based on his performance throughout preseason, I would want to see him on this roster. I would like to see all three quarterbacks on the roster. Jarrett Stidham, I thought, played fine for his I believe it was one drive, led us down to a score with Audric Estime getting in there at the goal line. And I believe Jarrett Stidham, he had a really nice, I think it was a fourth down. It was maybe a fourth and a mid-yardage, and he threw a really nice slant for like 10, 12 yards. I want to say it was to Devon Vele. That was really, really nice. But right now, I mean, we've seen it's a 17-game season, and if your quarterback goes down, I don't want to be having the problems that we've had in the past, having to put Kendall Hinton in there, having to put Ben DiNucci in there or anything like that. No. I know it's not always the most convenient choice to have three quarterbacks on the active roster, but especially with Bo being a rookie, I think that it's a wise thing to do. I would like to see Zach Wilson continue to have continuity in coaching this season, not to go to another team or anything like that. This year, continue to be part of that quarterback rehab. Get comfortable. Again, continuity, consistency, all of these things, having a coach that believes in you. All of these things go into the recipe that usually results in having improved play. So, first big takeaway from the post game, yes, Zach Wilson, rocky start. They could have been two picks. At the end of the day, he did settle in, though, and I think he looked, and played as you would expect somebody playing who is better, in my opinion, than the talent that they're playing against. You saw him light it up, 16 of 25, 251 yards, 10-yard average on throws. That's great. 2 TDs, sacked 4 times. I would put a couple of those on him, but a high quarterback rating, almost 124. And then we also saw him get in the end zone. on like a quarterback sneak, if I remember correctly. But he looked great. Love to see that. Another shout out before I get to some of your comments is to Tyler Beatty. Um, I thought that he had some good moments, not as explosive, I don't think, or big chunk plays as maybe we've seen in the first couple games. But I think right now, if you're looking at the rotation, one of the predictions that I had was Blake Watson was going to make this roster. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see, I wouldn't even be surprised to see the Broncos go with just 3 running backs and that fullback, Michael Burton, at first. And if you need to elevate Blake Watson or Tyler Beatty off the practice squad, I think you do that. I don't think Tyler Beatty is going to be somebody that's going to be claimed initially, but I think it's very clear throughout this whole preseason, Tyler Beatty and in training camp, he has stayed ahead of Blake Watson in the rotation. Bummer, but I'm glad, Blake Watson, you got paid to sign here, and hopefully you get an opportunity at some point in the NFL. Let's also talk about Troy Franklin, somebody that I did a film room on earlier. And again, I think some of the Denver media can be guilty of overreaction and all of that. I mean, that's what creates interest, right? That's why I listen sometimes too, right? But the idea that Troy Franklin is going to be cut, I never liked that. And really the film that I just wanted to put out, things that he needs to work on, but he's not drunk Maurice Clarett showing up to training camp. Like this guy is making plays. Uh, I thought he ran some good routes earlier this preseason. He had some nice blocks that resulted in impact gains, and it was nice to see him get involved a little bit in this game. He had a nice little end around or jet sweep rather for a first down, and then he also had another first down, this time in the passing game, which I believe was let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it was a 21-yard catch, like down the field. I can't remember if it was Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson offhand, but it was nice to see him get involved a little bit, have the ability to turn up field and make a play with the ball, get some yak. Really love that. Brandon Johnson, of course, yeah, his 46-yard touchdown was just a thing of beauty between him and Zach Wilson. Love to see that. I think Brandon Johnson is one of those guys that maybe he makes the roster. We'll have to see. He's definitely one of those guys that's right on the bubble, right on the edge of making the roster. We'll have to see. Let's talk a little bit about the defense. Keydron Smith, I want this guy to make the roster so bad. He has been involved in turnovers or creating opportunities for turnovers in all 3 of the games that he's played in this preseason. We saw that he did recover a fumble, which was great. And I believe he did force a fumble at another point in the game that ended up going out of bounds, if I remember correctly. I remember it was pretty close on whether the receiver just dropped it, but I think he did have possession before Keydron Smith knocked it out. At least that's how the refs called it. We'll see if we keep that many DBs, but I think that he's earned himself a spot offhand. I think he's played really, really well. Another guy that I want to highlight, our signing from the UFL, Myles Garrett. That's what I'm calling him. Dondre Tillman was definitely involved today. We had 6 total tackles, 4 solo, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 pass deflections. So he was getting his hands up, getting it on the football. I thought that he played very, very well. Now, if we do cut him, put him on the practice squad, I mean, there's no guaranteed money that we would owe him. So maybe you see that happen. But I think Dondre Tillman, he played this preseason how I was expecting. I think he made a lot of impact plays. And can he be maybe that 5th, 6th edge for us off the bench? We'll have to see, but I thought that he played pretty well, along with Tonneson Coombe. Thought he played well. Another guy that he's competing for a roster spot with. I think Dondre Tillman also made a tackle on special teams, if I remember correctly. Don't remember about Thomas and Coombe, but both of those guys should be able to play special teams. It was nice to see Owazurike get involved a little bit. That was really nice. And then, of course, how can I forget Lavelle Bailey, his 94-yard pick six? Just a thing of beauty. He was getting beaten coverage or on some quarterback scrambling earlier in that drive, and man, he just read that route immediately, jumped it, timed it perfectly, and then ran it back for the touchdown. It was cool to see like the whole team there celebrating that pick six. Maybe he's made a case for the roster, but I can't really speak to much of that. But overall, I think talking about establishing a winning culture, Sean Payton is doing that. We have played very, very well in preseason. Granted, some of the time it's like, hey, we've had our starters in going against other teams' backups. Well, we've done what we should have done, and that's handle business and win in dominant fashion. Get these guys used to the feeling of winning. We need that. We won 8 games last year. We have the opportunity to have our first winning season since 2016. Like 8 seasons, 9 seasons, something like that. Crazy. I think that we can do it this year, no doubt. And it's been great to see a lot of these guys really step up and have good preseasons. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these players that we cut end up on other rosters. So with that being said, I will get to some of your comments. Again, shout out to everybody in the chat. This is what makes it a lot of fun. Let me know. Do you think Zach Wilson earned himself that number 3 spot on the 53 in the quarterback room? I would like to keep all 3 just for this year. Let's have some continuity going in with the rookie quarterback, all of that. So I'll get through some of these. Again, shout out to you, Bill Bell. Thank you for all the support on the channel. It always means a lot to see you involved. I cannot agree with your assessment of Zach Wilson's play. He was purely lucky. He was not intercepted twice, and he fumbled the ball. That's true. He did fumble the ball. He did recover it. Ball security is very important, and I think when you look at that compared to Jarrett Stidham, it's kind of when you look at the turnovers that he's had in preseason, you can't, in my opinion, really put those on Jarrett Stidham. But yeah, like there are some things that definitely kind of go in Jarrett Stidham's favor right now, I feel, when you're talking about ball security. Might not just look at, or you might need to look deeper than on the stat sheet. I think that's what you're saying, and I agree with you on that. Biggie, Bronco, hope you're doing well. Yes, ball security has always been Wilson's problem, and that apparently has not changed. Yes, still putting the ball in some harm's way, and that's why I'm saying keep him on the active roster. Let's continue to work with him. I think he's showing great signs of improvement. Again, Sean Payton, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. It is not shocking to me to see improved quarterback play with a ton of the guys that he's worked with. And I don't think Zach Wilson is an exception to that. Biggie Bronco coming in here with a question. Let me ask you this question. Would you like to have the guys just Bland as the backup, or would you draw the guy that can bring out dynamic play? I want to stop seeing ghosts. Sorry, I might not have read that correctly. I want to stop seeing ghosts. That actually, and next year actually push for the starting quarterback job. Interesting. Yeah, I do think that Zach Wilson has more big playmaking ability than if you're comparing him to Jarrett Stidham. I think we've seen that, but his lows are also lower than Jarrett Stidham, and I think that's why Jarrett Stidham's going to be on the roster. In my opinion, I think that's why he will be the number 2, because you don't want to have those low moments. You don't want to have, I mean, even with the game that we lost, maybe this is revisionist history, but you guys correct me if I'm wrong. But with the game that we lost for Jarrett Stidham playing last year, it's like we didn't lose that game because of Jarrett Stidham. We didn't win it either because of Jarrett Stidham. But Zach Wilson can win you a game, or he can lose you a game. And I think Sean Payton likes a little bit more of the consistency. But I do think, just like you saw him redshirt essentially Jameis Winston when he signed with the Saints after his year with the Bucs, I think that little 5-game stretch the following year that Jameis Winston played with New Orleans before he broke his back on that or tore his ACL on that dirty hit from that Buccaneers linebacker. I thought that he was playing some of the best football in his career. So, in terms of Zach Wilson, I would like to keep him on the roster because of that ceiling. I think that he can get closer to that, but I don't think that. I don't know. Maybe he lucks into a situation like Sam Darnold did this offseason, but it's still kind of hard for me to see that. I think the best thing that he can do is taking some time, maybe more so the Geno Smith route, like being a long-term backup for a while, and then maybe you get your chance like a few years down the road, right? So yeah, it that's kind of how I look at it and see what's best for Zach Wilson. I still don't think rushing him out there is the best thing for him, but I think he's flashed enough to where you know that there's still some promise there. And if we keep him on the roster too, let's say there's a bunch of quarterback injuries going on, yeah, you can ship him off somewhere for a nice draft pick. I don't know if anybody's trading for Zach Wilson right now, but I think that could totally happen later on, and that's why I want to keep him on the roster, no doubt. Go through a few more of these comments. Alberto, what's going on? Hope you're doing well. And he's saying, I believe we have a legit shot this year to make the playoffs and possibly take first place over KC. Call me crazy. That might be a little bit crazy, but I'm here for it. I mean, we're celebrating a victory right now. Who cares if it's preseason? I'm all about it. I'm all about the positivity after a win, especially a 26-point win. I'm going to take it. Now, I do think that we'll see an improvement from the Broncos this year. Might we have to get a little lucky if we're going to win the division over Kansas City? I think there might have to be some luck, but hey, 2015 was filled with some luck, I think, for us. And who's to say that can't happen this year? I think that, granted, right now I've predicted the Broncos to go like 9-8, be in contention for one of those wild card spots. But when you look at their schedule, it's interesting because I feel like I understand kind of why the line is at 5.5. I don't think that is going to be the under. I mean, Sean Payton's never lost or never won less than 7 games in his entire career. I think that this team is better than some teams that he's had in the past. And I definitely see scenarios like Mike Kliss pointed out, and I think he predicted last week that what do you have them at 11-6 or 12-5, something like that. I see scenarios if they stay healthy, if Bo Nix adjusts well to regular season NFL football pretty quickly, we could get on a roll. I mean, I was shocked to see us win 8 games last year. Now you could say then that means there's going to be some regression this year. Maybe if it was with a head coach that I didn't truly believe in and I don't feel like has truly proven it, but I feel like Sean Payton, this is the type of culture that he creates where you're usually winning the time of possession, you're usually winning the turnover battles, and you kind of create your own luck a little bit more often. Not all the time, but just a little bit more often. I love it. Yeah, Baker is another one of those instances where he took a little bit of time. Maybe it was just an off season, or maybe it was just one season or two. I can't remember in which he didn't play, but then you saw him get his chance in Tampa, and he's a really good fit there. Yeah, Zach Wilson does have better arm talent than Baker Mayfield. I agree, and if he can play a little bit more consistent to how Baker's played with the Buccaneers. What do you lead the Buccaneers to? Was it a 9-8 record last year, wild card berth? Yeah, there's still hope. He's still so young. He's still like Bo Nix's age. Yeah, let's go. Biggie Bronco has upped his prediction. I do have a bet on the Broncos winning 10 games for what it's worth. Just had to play it. The plus 1100 odds were too nice. Just had to take a little bit of a swing before I moved out of state. Of course, in Texas, can't legally sports bet, so I had to get that in before I moved. Before preseason, I had the Broncos going 8-9. After watching Bo Nix, I got 10-7. Love it. Again, for them to win 10 games, all you need is a 2-win improvement. Like, that's not too crazy. Now, our last place schedule that we're playing does not feel like a last place schedule, that's for sure. But I I think we got an opportunity to get off to a hot start, and usually Sean Payton's teams play better in the second half than they do in the first half, for sure. And we even saw that last year. A lot of teams are going to be calling about Zach Wilson unless you keep him. Let's talk Nuggets. Thanks for the support. Nuggets fans, go subscribe to him. Do it, do it, do it. Quality content. A lot of teams are going to be calling about Zach Wilson unless you keep him. And hey, let's hey, if we can trade him for a 4th-round pick right now, 3rd-round pick, yeah, you're absolutely doing it. But I think right now what's best for him is to be on the active roster. More quarterback injuries will come, and maybe there's a team that calls and wants to like. Didn't the Arizona Cardinals get like real draft capital from the Vikings for Josh Dobbs? Like, maybe that type of situation can happen. But right now, we're seeing the progression with Zach. I think it's best that he stays here to do that. But I don't want to take the chance of cutting him, putting him on practice squad, only for him to be picked up to where we're not compensated at all. I think that, like a lot of you guys are saying, I think he's shown enough to warrant some interest around the league. Now it's about kind of playing that game a little bit. And God forbid Bo Nix has an injury the first week of the season or week 3, something like that. And then we got nobody behind Jarrett Stidham. I just don't want to take that chance this year. Uncle Iro, 25. Imagine Peyton having Zach Wilson for 3 years instead of just one offseason. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to have a Chase Daniel long-term backup, right? Even Geno Smith was a backup for quite a while. Now, I do compare Jarrett Stidham more to that Chase Daniel type of guy, but they're both in contract years. I think there'll only be one on the roster at this point next year. And Zach very well could command a higher contract just because of the perceived ceiling. Rawhide Media for you. What is going on? All you Buffs fans, we'll be doing a post game after the game against North Dakota State on David Talks Buffs. Y'all be sure to check it out. Rawhide, my main man. Sorry, I need to listen to your voice message. As you can tell, I'm a little late getting out here with this post game. Busy day. Zach Wilson has half the fumbles Trevor Lawrence has. Wow, I didn't realize Trevor Lawrence has that much of a fumble issue. Goodness. Goes to show when you got that elite arm talent, right? Yeah, Alberto echoing my feelings as well. Last year we had 8 wins with freaking Russell Wilson playing like crap. Yeah, our defense was playing out of their mind. We had 3 close losses. We definitely have a better team this year, especially at stopping the run. We have a shot at 11-6 over KC. Yes, and let's talk about the defensive line. I mean, Matt Henningsen was like a primary player for us last year, and he's maybe at the end of the 2 deep right now. We have, with getting Awazarike back from suspension, I mean, we got an influx of defensive line talent that I think is really going to help. And then when you look at the edge room, Nick Bonino's had another year, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, and then on top of it, you got Jonah Ellis, who is already playing like a main rotational edge for us, a 3rd-round pick out of Utah. He very well could be a starter by the end of the year. We'll have to see how that goes, but feeling much better about the edge room. And like I highlighted, you got guys like Dondre Tillman that are continuing to make plays in all facets of the game. 2 pass deflections today, a couple tackles for loss. I believe he's had a sack or 2 earlier on in preseason. Shout out to the UFL Birmingham Stallions, I think is where he came from. He was phenomenal there, the highest rated PFF defensive lineman in the league this spring. And he has definitely made an impact on the team this year and made a case to have a roster spot. Uncle Iro saying absolutely no sense that a kid who looks like he belongs in a boy band has a top 5 arm, but it's just the truth. Yeah, I will say since he's moved here, I think he does look a little bit more Colorado. Like, he's kind of got the scruff going on. He's got the long hair. I think he's looking more Colorado. It's nice. And Uncle Iro saying as a Jets fan, Zach came into the league with a ton of issues mechanically, maturity and reading defenses. Now he has worked through most of all of it, and now he just needs to be more consistent at it. Yes, and have an offensive line that can protect him. You didn't see that with the Jets. They've kind of always been known for having one of those terrible offensive lines. Here in Denver, I think if he's ever playing with the ones, he's going to be protected just fine. And I think you did see him, especially in that first preseason game against the Colts, where he got some decent protection. I mean, he was getting rid of the ball quickly, and yeah, things were just looking great. Now, his protection against the Packers was absolutely dreadful, but it was nice to see him bounce back and have a really nice performance today against the Cardinals. Let's see. Let's Talk Nuggets saying, I think they got a sixth, the Cardinals, that is, for Josh Dobbs, but that's something. He's a good backup with weapons, and the team trusts him. Yes, again, I feel like he's a guy like Sam Darnold or Geno Smith, one of these guys that's going to be in the league for a while. It's To me, I feel like him competing for a starting quarterback spot is going to be a little while. And right now, I feel like that's what's best for him anyways. I like our quarterback room right now. D-Rock, good to see you, man. He's saying Zach cemented his spot on the roster. That's what I'm talking about. I love it. I love it. I keep 3 quarterbacks this year. I'm doing it. I would love to see the NFL just make an exception, a full exception for the quarterback room, how you can keep 3 quarterbacks and it doesn't affect maybe you go down to like an active 50 or 51, something like that. I would love the NFL to just make some sort of special designation for the quarterback position just because it's so needed. They probably won't do that though. Tillman has to make the team. That's how I feel about it. If he's your 5th edge, I think you feel great. Let's Talk Nuggets. Would you rather suck and get the first round pick or go 9-8 and get first rounded by the Chiefs? Man, Let's Talk Nuggets. We haven't made the playoffs since 2015. I would love to see that. And if you're going to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback, I think you're thrilled. We don't have Super Bowl aspirations this year. If that ends up happening, I mean, there's going to be some rich people that if they put some money on the Broncos this offseason or preseason, then they're going to be very rich. But right now, our goal is to make the playoffs. I feel like that is collectively what we want as a fan base. We haven't tasted that feeling in a very long time. And even if it doesn't result in a win, I would still totally take that. Building a winning culture, getting guys playoff experience. And honestly, if we get destroyed by the Chiefs in the playoffs, I think that could do some good for us. Even just, for the players to understand exactly how much more they have to go to get towards being a championship caliber team. Playoff experience, I feel like, is always better than not playoff experience in the NFL. Now, if we're talking NBA, that's a little bit different, man. But that's kind of how I feel about it. Oh, first round pick overall. Yeah, I don't want to see us get a first overall pick, man. I mean, it would be cool to get like an amazing defensive lineman or offensive lineman or Travis Hunter, but I would rather us not go back to the quarterback well. But if we're the first overall team, we probably are getting another quarterback. And I just don't know if this year's quarterback class has the high end talent like we saw this year. I think that this is going to be a pretty good quarterback class compared to other drafts. I love Shador, of course, as a Colorado Buffalo and all of that. But I think right now, when you're talking about pro football, his fit with Sean Payton, all of that, I think that Bo Nix is a much better fit. And could Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers be that guy? We'll have to see. But I don't know. Not super high on Quinn Ewers in the NFL. Carson Beck, I like his size. I like his arm. We'll see what he can do this next year. I think if you can put Zach Wilson behind a good offensive line, it'll be pretty good. He's got an elite arm talent. Um, put him behind a good offensive line, you might have something after a year of rehab. I completely agree with you, Big E Bronco. Totally agree with you. And he's got a lot to prove because and a lot on the line because he is in a contract year. And if he takes on continues to take well to the coaching from Sean Payton, even if the Broncos aren't able to retain him or if we do trade him at some point, the word of mouth and recommendation from a Sean Payton, I think, is going to go a long way for his career. If the Broncos make the playoffs, it's possible. It's possible for the Super Bowl because the last 5 games of the season, it's all about the run and who has the most consistent run game. Yes, and if you're hot going into the playoffs, that is huge. Let's talk about maybe like the New York Giants, right? Were they a wild card team in both of their Super Bowl runs with Eli Manning? I think they might have. In at least one of them they were. I know that was a while back, but yeah, if you get to the playoffs, all you got to do is win what? Uh, wild card division. You got to win 4 straight. Obviously, a lot easier said than done. There's only one team out of the playoffs that's able to do it, but uh, the NFL is filled with a ton of parity. So anything can happen. You just want a ticket to the dance, right? And then you're going to see what happens. That's what makes NFL football so exciting. Biggie Bronco saying Sanders is going to be a bust in the NFL. Too many daddy issues. Man, I'll fight you on this, but that's for another video. I think what I will say is if he ends up going to the New York Giants or the New York Jets, that is not going to be good. For him. That is not, or any of those quarterbacks. And I fear that the situations that these rookie quarterbacks are going to go into next year are going to be really hard, really tough situations. So yeah, I wouldn't try and tank for a quarterback right now in this year's draft. If I'm an NFL team, I don't think anybody's kind of worth tanking for. How much salary cap will the Broncos have next year? Because if you win some games, free agencies might want to come. Oh yeah, and we even saw this year where a couple guys took smaller contracts to come play for Sean Payton. You saw John Franklin Myers take a pay cut to come here to make a trade happen from the New York Jets. You saw Will Lutz come back here after initially accepting a contract from the Panthers. But I think as you've seen this team collectively bond. You don't have anybody on this team that's putting themselves above the team, that's more concerned about their image than the team. Everybody's about football, no drama. Even that little thing with Cortland Sutton didn't last very long. Like they found a nice little agreement where we bumped some incentives up, and basically for him to get paid what he wants, we got to make the playoffs essentially. And I think that's totally fine. I'm willing to pay Cortland Sutton a little bit more if he helps us get to a playoff. That would be incredible. Now, next year, depending on how some things are worked out, we could open up as much as like I think 80 to 90 million of cap space. I think Quinn Minor's extension that we just signed him to recently is why that number probably won't be, that cap number won't be over 100 million in space now, but he's one of the top guards in the NFL. You'll see a Pat Surtain extension come at some point, which is probably going to knock us down to, 60-70 million dollars or so. We'll have top 5 cap space even with the Russell Wilson dead money next year. They've done a great job at navigating through all of this. So Denver's a great place to live. I mean, that it's wonderful. So if you can attract somebody like Peyton Manning here in free agency, when the team's good, again, what happened the year prior to Peyton Manning coming here? We went on a crazy run, Tebow time, baby. We made the playoffs. We even won a game. I don't think Peyton Manning's coming to the Denver Broncos if they weren't a playoff team that year prior. When you put yourselves in contention, people want to play for a winner. And that's something that we haven't done since 2016 when we finished 9-7. That will change the narrative. It will be positive for the culture, and you're going to see free agents want to come and live in Denver. I mean, one of the best places to live in the entire world. Do I think Landon Bailey makes this roster? I don't. But maybe he got himself a spot on the practice squad. But it was nice. That was nice to see. And even right now, Big E coming in with the data saying the Broncos have the 9th most salary cap space next year. That's great. And yeah, that includes like, hey, if we decide to move on from a guy like Cortland Sutton, who's on the salary cap, I think his cap hits like close to 18, 16, $17 million or something like that, but no money guaranteed. So there's some contracts like that next year that you can that you can cut to free up more space where you're not even owing these guys any money. So yeah, they've done a great job at navigating through this Russell Wilson dead money, and now's the time to do it when you can keep that quarterback room salary pretty low with Bo Nix being here. So yeah, I think circling back to the point of this video, you saw the Broncos play dominantly, winning football, forcing turnovers. I mean, that big hit by Strnad, like, let's talk about him. I thought he had a very nice showcase today, forcing that fumble that Keydron Smith ended up picking up. So, yeah, I feel like we're in the case in a situation now where maybe 2 years ago in 2022, like guys that got cut from this roster probably didn't have much of an NFL future. I think that might be different this time around. Even if we cut some of these players, they might still have a future on another 53. I think that some of these guys have had some really good showings, and it's going to be interesting to see how many wide receivers we keep. I think we keep 6. I think we keep 3 quarterbacks right now. I think the only 3 running backs that we keep on the roster are Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Audric Estime. I would love to see a trade for where we're giving Samaje Perine another spot to where he can play more often. I don't know if that's possible, but even if we're not able to trade him, if we do cut him, we're getting back $3 million in cap space doing that. And with the play of both Tyler Beatty and Blake Watson, I would feel fine doing that and keeping those guys on the practice squad until, God forbid, an injury happens. So that's kind of how I feel about this whole situation. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot to have you guys in here. Apologies that I'm a little late. Again, still in the process of moving. So we'll have here later this week my whole little studio room starting to get set up. Things are going to look a lot nicer. So, man. Oh, yeah. Perine to Dallas would be great, Big E Bronco, no doubt. They got to watch Zeke and Rico Dowell. I think they have Royce Freeman on the roster. Like, I think that he would be an upgrade. And even, might I say, if we do trade somebody like Zach Wilson, or if we do trade Zach Wilson, how about the Cowboys? Well, I guess they got Cooper Rush. But on another note, the Trey Lance experience might be over, man. The 5 picks yesterday was just inexcusable. 5 picks. Wow. That's all I got to say. Wow. So y'all take it easy. Thank you so much for the support. Please smash that like and subscribe on the way out. I'll be back with more film room stuff this week and next week as we get prepped for the season here in a couple weeks. But this is going to be a great season, Broncos fans. Thank you for joining me in here. I'll see you guys tomorrow. As always, go